Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Faith and Finance Forum, presented by the Catholic Finance Association and brought to you by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. So excited for today's show. We have Jason Coon from Catholic Benefits Association with us. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing well, John. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Let's start with a prayer, shall we? In the name
Sure.
of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy
Lord,
Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at
uh,
the hour of our death. Amen. Saints Peter and Paul, pray for us. Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Amen. Well, Jason Kuhn, this is really exciting for the Faith and Finance Forum to be talking with you today. You are coming to us from Colorado, I believe, right?
correct. Yes. Just south of Denver, a small town called Castle Rock.
Castle Rock. That sounds very exotic and beautiful. We'll have to explore that a little bit more. Have you
Yeah.
ever been to New York City?
Was in New York City one time my
Okay.
entire life. Yes.
Okay, so much of our audience is based there. So next time you come, we can have a Jason Kuhn welcome party, and it'll be great. So
Great.
let's go ahead and talk to our folks a little bit more about your background. We have Jason Kuhn. He's the Vice President, Health Benefits Consultative Services at Catholic Benefits Association. During his 23 years working in customer service and account management with Aetna, Jason Kuhn implemented a personal sales and service approach in his departments. He established strong customer relationships and superior service model and helped to grow innovative technology sales businesses. He is a graduate from Charter Oak State College, where he earned his bachelor's degree in healthcare administration. As vice president of the Catholic Benefits Association, Jason is committed to innovating a new Catholic standard for health plans while creating cost effective Catholic health and benefit solutions to CBA's membership. You know, Jason, it's interesting. We're the Faith and Finance Forum, but we actually talk about healthcare issues and health benefit issues quite a bit on this program, mostly because it's such a big expense for so many families and so many companies and small businesses. So it certainly applies in the finance space where our organization, the show, focuses its attention. And the good news is you're an expert in that. You came up in Aetna as a top sales leader, and now you're at the Catholic Benefits Association as vice president. Tell us a little bit about your professional profile, where your expertise lies. What's Jason Kuhn's focus?
Yeah, I think my focus is, if I were to put it very briefly, is to step into the space of translator between faith and healthcare. Our tagline for one of our products is called "Where Faith Intersects Healthcare," and I think that is required in today's political, cultural, and legal environment. Right? Is we need more people to step into this space and sort of lead the way around. We can't do business as usual anymore, considering the threats and the attacks that are happening in benefits on health plans with mandates, et cetera. That's all increasing cost of healthcare plans. And when we surveyed our membership at the CBA, the employers told us the top two things that are their challenges are cost and Catholic identity. Flat out, by far, the top two challenges. So you're right. This does cross apply to finances because of the ever increasing cost of health care, as well as how that affects health plan costs for Catholic employers.
All right, awesome. And we're going to get into that in great detail in just a few minutes, but I want our audience to get to know you better a little bit. Tell
Yeah.
us about where you're from, where you grew up, your family life, anything that's interesting about your personal background.
I don't know if it's interesting, but small town kid out of rural North Dakota. Um, my uh, graduating class, just to tell you how small the town is, was 20 kids. So, super small town. Grew up in that community atmosphere, right, where you drop everything to help a neighbor. A lot of my classmates are still back in my small town or around that area, and living in North Dakota. And it's just such a great blessing to go back and to from big town and then go back and meet with those folks. It truly, reminds you of your humble upbringings, and bringing that into the business space and bringing that up into what I've done throughout my career. I've always, tried to use that basic, helpful service attitude in pretty much everything that I've done. So
This is very interesting because a lot of our listening audience probably has not spent a lot of time in North Dakota. How would you describe the people and culture of your home state?
I would say, first off, North Dakota is, it's a very flat state. But you know what? The people are salt of the earth, right? I mean, these are farmers by trade. My ancestors were a part of the ancestral group that was sort of pushed out of or forced out of Germany to Odessa, Russia, when Catherine the Great gave them farmland to come and farm. And that was their living. They then were pushed out of Odessa and back to the Germany area, jumped on a boat. And what astonishes me the most is they land at Ellis Island, and then somehow they show up in North Dakota, probably because the land was fairly cheap, right? And this is farming community, farming country, and cattle and ranch and dairy type state. And those folks will jump out of a tractor to go help someone do something else, right? So that's really what North Dakota folks are all about.
Were your parents farmers?
We were not. We lived in town, so we lived in our small town. But my relatives, my uncles and grandfathers were farmers and cattle ranchers, raised livestock. So we got a lot of farm life when we went out to my Uncle Roger's farm and rode horse, drove cattle up for milking, and all the stuff that you would typically do on a ranch.
So cool. That's awesome. So you grew up in the small town in North Dakota. You went to college. How did you get into health benefits and where you built your career? What's the background there?
Well, I went to initially went to school to college to be a lineman and work on power lines. And I that college era is when you sort of fall away from family life, faith life, right? And but luckily for me, I met my wife, who sort of picked me up by the bootstraps and said, let's start a family. So very early on, I met her in college. I later did go back to school and receive my degree through Charter Oak State College. It was an online college out of Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut area. And in healthcare administration. But yeah, early on, I fell into health insurance by a friend who said he had an opening in his area for a job. And I was a customer service representative for a few years, became a manager, supervisor of customer service and claims processing teams in an insurance company. And then later moved into I was the first, what was called the plan sponsor liaison for Aetna. I was one of the first people who went into that role. And that was really a translator, right? Between, maybe you're sensing a theme here, but translator between the customer service operations team and sales. After doing some finalist presentations with the sales team, I got coaxed over to the sales side. So that's kind of how I got into the insurance business.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You had a good run at Aetna. You were there for 20 years. You were promoted several times, became a team leader. What were some of the highlights of your time at that well-known company?
Yeah, I think some of the highlights would probably be, being deeply invested in the customer service and claims processing components, understanding sort of the underbelly of how those components work, so that when I did get to the sales area, I was able to translate that process very well and speak into how how a benefit system should be coded in order to pay claims correctly, right? Sales wise, I was on several large national accounts, big name, Fortune 500 organizations, helping them and their employees to get the most out of their benefits and achieve, better health and wellness. And then lastly was a stint, my last few years were on the technology side. And working with a company called iTriage that Aetna had purchased. And that was really steering people through an app, right? An avatar, pointing to what hurts, to how do I seek care, who should I be going to for care, et cetera. And then looking into the future, what does that, using AI, what does that experience look like? And then selling that app to customers. Those are sort of some of the highlights that I appreciated.
Yeah, I must say, a man that worked up to be an account manager like you were at Aetna from the entry level customer service ranks. That's a little bit like a general in the army coming up from being a private. You know what I mean? Like you know every layer of the business. You've seen everything from the front lines all the way up. And I got to think that helped you as you moved into sales and sales leadership and ultimately account management to just have that intricate knowledge of the business at every single level, from hearing the customers' complaints and positive feedback, probably a decent mix of both, I'm sure. Leading teams at all levels. That's heavy exposure. That must have really been an advantage to you during your career at Aetna.
For sure, for sure. And as I said before, being able then to translate some of that into a better experience, creating better experiences, that was always my goal. Is someone might be angry on the other end, but that person's got a lot going on. And for us not to pay a claim timely, or for us to mess something up, if it was our fault, we owned it, and we fixed it and apologized and moved on. Right. That's sort of the dynamic of that came up out of that approach.
I love that. Now, talk to us a little bit about your leadership philosophy, because you've been, I mean, you're in a very people intensive business. You've been in customer service, you've been in sales, you've managed accounts, you've dealt with a diverse group of external and internal stakeholders. What are some of your leadership principles that you've employed throughout your career?
Yeah, I think relationship, right? Relationship is probably the best. Getting to know someone, their side of things. You know, I think we've all tried to, email someone to get a meeting, so that you could try to sell them something, right? It just doesn't work. I like that personal connection. I go back to sort of that hometown roots of, getting to know someone, getting to know their family, much like we're doing now, and then have a conversation about the challenges that they have, and how could we affect, and in this world, this sort of Catholic space, if we can't affect change, if we don't have a solution, getting to know as many Catholic business people out there as possible to connect into the solutions that others might be working on. I mean, that's of great value, because you're going to bring them someone who's of like mind, and maybe a struggling business that needs customers, where they're a good fit that I don't have the right fit for. So I think relationship building is extremely key to be able to do that.
I like that, and it's clear that you never forgot where you came from. You brought with you these North Dakota values that are such a big part of your background and your foundation. So, Jason, let me ask you this: I mean, you're very expressive and out about your Catholic faith. Tell us a little bit about your faith journey. What does your Catholicity and your faith in Jesus Christ and Mary mean to you?
Well, now everything, right? um, like I talked about earlier, it wasn't that I fell away from faith. It was always there. I just didn't do the things I needed to do, right? I was busy or had other things going on as in my youth. But over time, I have slowly felt that pull, right, into a closer relationship with Jesus Christ. I have become a huge believer in building a relationship with the mother of our Lord Mary. She has been such a wonderful intercessor for myself since moving to Catholic Business Association, and in helping me and growing with my relationship with her son Jesus. So this has been the past 5 years, I would say, have been an amplified focus, a personal endeavor, if you will, to get closer to Mary and to Jesus. So for myself.
So many of our listeners, I'm sure, connect with what you said, Jason, about just being busy. Hey, I'm still a person of faith. I'm still Catholic, but man, I got a million things going on from 6 a.m. until 11 p.m. at night. I am hustling. I am trying to work my business. I'm trying to be a good family member, trying to be a good person. just sometimes I just feel like I can't do it all. A lot of people are connecting with that right now when you say that. What are some of the practices, the disciplines, the techniques that you've employed in recent years as your faith has grown, stronger than ever to be successful in business, which you've done, but also strengthen your faith life?
Yeah, I think it started with joining the Knights of Columbus. Really become a part of community and fraternity and meeting with these gentlemen of like mind and faith, praying the rosary every single day. That I can't even begin to tell you the graces that and blessings that hit me and my family since praying the rosary. I mean, that was something that I had not done in the past. I mean, we prayed rosary from time to time. When I was a kid, we prayed the rosary all the time, right? Because you had that formation, you had that foundation that was there sort of beating you over the head. North Dakota moms, strong German family. So, but at the end of the day, getting back to it, that's really what it's come down to. And I think also diving into learning more about the founding fathers, right? And really going back to the basics of our faith. Where did it start? And then, sort of having this enlightenment of how that faith was carried from my ancestors to North Dakota to me. I mean, you just can't, when you think about it in that way, you just can't let that slide, right? All those generations that brought that faith to you, and then to choose to step away from it, that kind of hurts when you think about it that way. But that foundation, that sort of ancestral thought that I had after learning more about my ancestry was something that really just solidified, look, man, you have a responsibility here to carry this forward for generations to come. So
Gosh, I love that. That is so true. I mean, so many people, even in the secular world will say, hey, my family is what I'm proudest of. You know what I mean? I'm really proud of, where I came from, what my parents and grandparents accomplished, et cetera. You're absolutely right. If you really do honor that, if you really do love that, for most of us, their faith was a big part of that. Whether it was their Catholic faith or another faith denomination. For almost everybody, their faith journey is very central to that. And if you don't honor that, how could you really be fully honoring your family's heritage? I think that's really fascinating. For your family, is there evidence that their faith was always a strong part of their life, going back generations? Have you discovered that?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, my as far back as I can remember, my grandmother and her family and my mother was sort of the foundation. My mother was the faith foundation in our family, and that came from her family, right? Um, I think back about how farming, right? When you plant a seed, you rely a lot on God, right?
Mm,
And we need
yes.
water, right? And farmers tend to uh, be very in tune with the weather, right? Because of destruction, whether it's tornadoes or hail or we need rain, right? There is this, I would say, almost self-reliance on God to come through for you. Much like the birds don't think about life or whatever. They just rely on their creator to sort of provide for them. The same with farming, the farming community. And I think about that quite frequently when I sort of ponder our faith and where we've come from as a family. But that reliance was there. It was there to provide for them food. It was there to provide a living. And it's very foundational. And for me, to again think about that, there's a responsibility there, I think, to carry that forward and share these types of stories with our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about this. I mean, your family's commitment to their faith surely goes back, generations and generations. You know what I mean? Maybe 1,000 years or more. You know, do you want to be the generation that breaks that? Do you
Right.
want to be the one where generations 1 through 20, over 1,000 years and two continents and wherever your family's journey took them, do you want to be the one who said, "Hey, I chose something other than faith for my children"? That wouldn't be a choice I would make. It sounds like you wouldn't either.
No, not at all. And you know what's motivating to me is I see more and more cousins or family members that are sort of fallen away,
Mm.
or fallen in a way in some regard, right? And when I think about how many, we had a large family. My grandfather, I believe he had 16 kids in his family.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
So, so at the end of the day, when you think about who's still engaged, who's not engaged, that number is shrinking, or has shrunk. And those of us who have sort of realized this, um, you know, I see other cousins that are just stepping into that space and saying, "Look, man, we have a responsibility to carry this forward."
I love it. And in terms of your personal practice, you mentioned that the daily rosary has been a big part of that. When do you typically work that into your routine? At what point during the day are you typically praying the rosary?
Yeah, it's typically evenings, but I will pray it in the car if I'm going to a meeting downtown or whatever the case may be. That opens things, opens the evening up for other things. I love to read. I again sort of study our faith. I dabble a little bit in Aquinas, just reading, right? Just kind of learning from the saints. I've read a book from Rod Bennett called The Four Witnesses. You've probably heard of it. I just bought the Four More Witnesses book of his, so I'm excited to tear into that. But that just opens room for sort of studying the faith a little bit more.
Beautiful. And Jason, what about your own family? We describe them to us.
Yeah, sure. Beautiful wife Tracy. Tomorrow's our 28th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. We have two girls, 26 and 23. Mercedes is our oldest. She married a young man from here in Colorado 2 years ago now. And we are fresh new grandparents. Our grandson turns 1 next month. So we're excited about that. And my youngest is 23, Madison. She's wrapping up nursing school. She'll be done in December. And Mercedes, our oldest, is going to be wrapping up her master's program in art history at the end of December as well.
It sounds like everybody's good. You look too young to be a grandfather. I'm surprised to hear
Yeah, looks can be deceiving.
that. Castle Rock, Colorado. What's that like? What's your town like?
It's a cool town. It reminds me a lot of in North Dakota. I spent a lot of time. My wife was from a town called Mandan, which was across the river from the capital, Bismarck. And it reminds me a lot of the Bismarck folks, right? Smaller town, cool little, sweet little downtown that everybody needs to come check out. Good people here. We're excited to be here. And we moved down here to Colorado in 2005. And so we've been here for quite some time, but recently moved to Castle Rock in 2019, and we're enjoying it.
I hear the secret is out about Colorado. I hear everybody's moving there. Is that correct?
Let me tell you, it's true, and I guess I'm a part of it. It's hard. You're hard pressed. They always say you're hard pressed to find someone who was born here, right? Uh, because everybody's from everywhere else. If you were to go to our mass here in Castle Rock, there's more people from New York here than you could
Wow.
ever imagine. And they love it. I just had some neighbors walking by the house. We have a new build going in beside us, and they were checking out the foundation that was laid, and you could tell the accent, that East Coast accent. And I said, when did you get into Colorado? And they said 2016. I was like, huh, welcome.
It's so funny. I love it. So we're on with Jason Coon, Catholic Benefits Association, talking about faith, family, leadership, Catholic health benefits. A lot going on in Jason's world right now. So Jason, you had the run at Aetna in the past 5 years, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. You made a significant shift and joined the Catholic Benefits Association. Do I have that timeline right?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
about 5 years. Yeah, five and a
Yeah.
half years.
T
So.
talk to us about that process, moving into Catholic Benefits Association, where you're at now. What attracted you to CBA and this role, and how's it going so far?
Yeah, well, it was kind of good timing, right? I had been with it for some time, was on the technology side. We were coming up with a new creation, and I had actually sold 6 of this new app, this new creation, And then the company decided to scrap it. So I had to go tell 6 people they weren't getting it. But at the time, an early retirement package came out, and I had asked my manager at that time. I was like, hey, with this thing being scrapped, what's the next direction? And we just didn't know. So I felt pulled to take that retirement package and to get out. It wasn't long after that. It was about a month after that time frame that I spotted this position with Catholic Benefits Association. It was one of those where it was kind of yeah, I think I could do that. I really don't know what it is, but what the heck, we'll apply for it. I think my experience will be of benefit, and interviewed for the position. It quickly turned into something very, very different. It was sort of that liaison between health insurance and Catholic employers, is what it sort of was, and still is to this day. But it quickly moved into a leadership role, and sort of this managing a captive insurance company. At the time, we had a captive insurance company, but that has yet evolved into something even greater than what that was at the time. So yeah, the evolution in 5 years has been very, very quick. We're a small organization of 4 employees, and we're quick and nimble, and we've got a lot going on, like you said.
Yeah, you all punch above your weight, though. I mean, you have those 4 employees, but you serve a big book of business, including most Catholic dioceses in North America, right? Talk to us a little bit about the scope of your business.
Yeah, so we're the largest Catholic employer association in the nation that was built around protecting the religious liberties of Catholic employers. We sued the government on the healthcare mandates, first on what we call the CASC mandates: contraception, abortifacient, sterilization, and the counseling of those services, and then the transgender mandates, right? And 76 dioceses. We've got now 1,300 Catholic employers. Over 121,000 Catholic employee lives is what they represent. And what I love about this position is it's sort of evolved into the CBA becoming sort of and our healthcare program, a unique ecosystem where we're involved in the protections piece, but we're also involved in Catholic identity in your HR practices and in your health plan. And it's just been a wonderful blessing in how this has evolved forward. So we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it sounds like. Tell me about the history and founding of Catholic Benefits Association. When did it start? Just a little bit about the history of the organization, please.
Yeah, founded in 2013. It was founded based on a conversation between Cardinal Dolan and President Obama. Cardinal Dolan went to President Obama and said, hey, we love what's going on with the ACA mandates, except there are some things that we're concerned about as Catholics. We'd like to talk about getting those removed. And President Obama at the time said, well, we'll give you a year to figure it out. He then Cardinal Dolan tapped on the shoulder of the head of the Religious Freedoms Committee, Archbishop Laurie from Baltimore, and the CBA was started. He pulled together, along with his attorney and other Catholic leaders, a bunch of Catholic employers within this association, and quickly sued the government. And that's how we were established.
And I think a lot of our listeners will recall that event, which garnered so much media attention and was a focus of the public's attention for a long time. Talk to us about how your organization views that 2013 era, I guess phenomenon, that moment in history with the ACA and the HHS mandates.
Yeah, I think we viewed that as a critical time in our history. It was sort of a pivotal moment in that sort of threat of going to jail for not doing something, or what are we going to do about it, right? Because we either close our doors, right, as Catholic employers, Catholic diocese, archdiocese, or go to jail, right? And that wasn't going to happen. And we were incredibly blessed to have the legal team put together that's there with us today. Nussbaum Spear Gleason is the organization. Martin Nussbaum is one of the attorneys that works with the Religious Freedoms Committee as well, from a legal standpoint. And to put that team together and do what they did as quick as they did, and to be successful at it, that's such a huge victory for Catholic employers everywhere. So,
And the reason it was a victory is because the right of religious organizations to live by the teachings of their faith and to do business according to those teachings ultimately prevailed. Is that how
right.
you would describe it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
in broad terms, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this continuous threat, where we're talking now about medical conscience, we're talking about, threatening the ERDs of the Catholic Church and whatnot. Those are all sort of a second wave of attack coming forward. But you're absolutely right in broad terms. That's exactly the reason that the foundation of our victory.
So I guess it begs the question if this was decided and we do consider it a significant victory, why are we still under threat today?
Because the other side didn't win. At the end of the day, the government is getting smarter at how to come after these types of protections, right? They may have lost round one, but they're coming back with a vengeance. And there is this second wave that I keep talking about was crafted. The CBA uncovered a memo that was crafted by 30 different activist groups, including Planned Parenthood and other LGBTQ type organizations, who came together, wrote a letter to HHS, and laid out a plan for what this next set of mandates should look like. It was a result of a lawsuit called Whitman Walker. At the end of the day, they're coming after, like I said, religious exemption. They're coming after the ERDs, and they're coming after the CBA protections that are in place today. And what they want is everything from surgical abortion through gender affirming care to be covered a part of health plans mandated. So not only gender transition, but also anything cosmetic related to further affirming your chosen sex. To be covered under a health plan. And we talked about finances. What is that going to do to a health plan, right? It's going to cripple it, right? If you think about, if they capture someone early enough, right? A 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, when they start doing puberty blockers or et cetera, they've got a patient for life. We used to talk about the Kaiser medical plan is a different health plan model. And they used to talk about those who are in it are there from cradle to grave, right? This is sort of it's not the same thing, but this is sort of that catch them early and we've got a patient for life. Even if, they make it to the point where they've made some sort of transition and they realize this wasn't the right move. Now they want to transition back. Let's not even talk about the behavioral health aspects of all of this. You've got a patient for life. This is billions and billions of dollars that we're talking about. That's going to inflate the cost of healthcare significantly.
So you've discovered this memo or letter from this coalition of groups to HHS proposing, some type of strategy to change the law in this area. How seriously do you take it? What's your analysis of it? Is it a credible threat? Is it something that we should be concerned about? What's your color on that?
Absolute valid threat. It is with the Office of Management and Budget. Most proposed rules that make it to that level, it's only a matter of time before they figure out the finances, and then it's going to be proposed. So it is with OMB right now. And OMB had a couple of listening sessions this week. And we do not see anything standing in the way of this thing coming through.
Have all groups been allowed to participate in these listening sessions, or is it only select groups?
It must be select groups because we were not invited.
Perhaps an oversight.
Perhaps.
So if enacted, if this letter, this memo's proposal and strategy is enacted, that would be an administrative action from the HHS, a federal mandate that would go into effect immediately. Presumably, that would that would trigger a round of lawsuits in response. Do I have that future timeline correct?
Yeah, yeah, you'll see well, you won't hear about it probably, but there will be a 30-day, maybe 60 day window, right, where there's sort of a time for comment, right?
Hmm.
And that would be that's an action step that we have out on our website, as part of our taking action page on this, is to get involved,
Hmm.
monitor this. We're going to be monitoring it when this hits. There will be a specific timeline comment period, and we want as many people to comment on this as possible.
Okay, that's interesting. So, how would a member of the public or an organization concerned about this comment during that period? What would be the simplest way to do that?
Yeah, we're still kind of waiting to see what this looks like, but typically there is sort of resources out there where you can email the government. We'll be including those links on our webpage, where they can email the government as part of this and comment. You've seen sort of those taking action websites on USCCB that USCCB has, where you can contact your legislators, et cetera. So we're going to be pooling those together so that we can quickly and swiftly take action, and anybody interested in doing the same can do it.
Jason, I got to tell you, why are we still going through this? I mean, why in this country, that has always led the way and been the shining example of religious liberty and freedom of association and all the sacred rights that we have enshrined, which predate America, but were enshrined by America. Why are we still going through this? Why can't the Catholic Church or the Jewish community or the Muslim community or any religion in this country, why can't they do business and operate their organizations according to the tenets of their faith? This is America, right?
Right, right. No, I agree, and I'm on board with you. I asked that same question. I think it comes down to a coworker of mine. I think put this best into perspective for me was, we have moved away from, we're in a post-Christian society, right? And with that, if you're not Christian, then the new God is self, right? You can self-build yourself up. You can create who you are, change who you are. This sort of movement away from our creator and why we're here to creating yourself. That seems to me to sort of at the highest level provide me with greater perspective that it's one or the other. And if we're not going to agree that God exists and that God created us and that we're here to do a job, help others, et cetera, then we're going to follow a different ideology. And once that ideology gets into power, everything that is behind it is going to get pushed. You're seeing it in healthcare today, where doctors and healthcare systems are being forced to, against their medical conscience, to do things. You're seeing it in the health plans, but also you're seeing it in our culture today. We're so focused on ourselves, and I think it's if you've I haven't fully read it, but I did get the book. I'm kind of into it right now. But this New Apostolic Age by Monsignor Shea of the St. Mary, University of Mary. Listen, this is a new time for us as Catholics to really step into this. It's an ugly space, yes, but I think more and more of us have to. I guess I think of it as timely that in the past 5 years that my faith has grown the way it is, because it's going to require many of us to step in and to really bring back this Christian society that we've had, these morals and values that I was raised on, really taking those to heart, because they're drifting away, and we need to teach our kids what these are. In order to move back to that sort of Christendom.
Yeah, I guess it's also worth noting, and complimenting the foresight of Cardinal Dolan and Archbishop Lori and the other founders of the Catholic Benefits Association 10 years ago, realizing that this was going to be an ongoing struggle. In fact, the 2013 era decisions were not the end of this, but rather the beginning, sadly. And now we have the Catholic Benefits Association, which is really taking this on behalf of the Catholic Church and allied organizations. How do you interact with your members? You mentioned the 75 or so, 76 or so dioceses, other Catholic organizations. Talk to us a little bit about how your organization functions in terms of working on behalf of your members and pursuing its mission.
Yeah. So we are governed by a board of 8 archbishops and Catholic lay leaders, and with legal and attorney backgrounds. That's sort of the background structure, right? Our CEO engages with our membership as issues like this arise, as we find these types of issues or proposed rulings, et cetera. We do webinars with our members to keep them informed on the landscape of all of this, how they are affected, if we know how they're affected. So when this proposed rule, if it does drop, right, if and when it does, we will immediately provide a webinar to those folks and engage them in an education of what's in this thing. So if this thing is 1,000 pages, for example, it will be quickly scoured through to determine how they'll be effective and lay it out step by step what it is that we need to do next. But our attorneys will, along with our CEO, lay the groundwork for what are next steps and how quickly we're going to move and keep our membership informed.
And what consequences would Catholic dioceses and Catholic organizations face should this new mandate stand and survive legal challenge? How would the provision of medical benefits in Catholic institutions change in that future?
Yeah. So this super rule has, what it's going to, I've already talked about kind of what it mandates,
Yep.
but any failure to comply or requesting exemption based on religious or conscience or invoking RIFRA or the Hyde-Weldon Amendment or grandfathering, all of that goes away. It's all punishable. Those things go away, right? This includes all employers with health plans. It includes organizations receiving funding, federal funding, and their contracted employer groups working with them. So feel the broadness of and the reach of this. And then it also is going to affect insurance companies and third-party administrators. HHS and EEOC, those government agencies are the ones who are enforcing this. There are whistleblower suits by activists that are going to be a part of this, as well as individuals, including employees, patients, and health plan enrollees can sue their employer, right, in civil suit. That's who can enforce this, right? And the sanctions, the penalties include loss of Medicare, Medicaid funds, False Claims Act remedies, and treble damages. There's compensatory damages, attorney's fees, and up to 5 years imprisonment for responsible persons. So that's really the spectrum, the depth of which this reaches across what is discrimination and who's enforcing it, all the way down to the sanctions.
And while the Catholic Church would certainly be impacted heavily by it, it's not just Catholics that would suffer, right? It would be all types of religious organizations that would bear the burden here, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're in the scope today, but this cross applies to all religious folks. The discrimination isn't determined by the religion.
So what allies do you have in this struggle? Outside of the archbishops that lead CBA on the board, the Catholic dioceses you serve, your member organizations. Presumably, you have to be a part of a coalition that's wider than just the Catholic Church, given the obvious threat this bears to ancient liberty, both in this country and previously. You must have a broader coalition than just the Catholic Church, right?
Sure, sure. We have relationships with the leadership of Catholic Medical Association, who faces that barrage of medical conscience, National Catholic Bioethics Center, Catholic Bar Association, as well as Christ Medicus. Lewis Brown is on the forefront of, he's the executive director of Christ Medicus Foundation, and he is our DC advocate, right? That is on the ground in DC and pushing for medical conscience rights state by state throughout the nation. So yeah, we've got some great advocates, some great help, and we're coming together. We formed, the CBA is a part of a leadership alliance called the Catholic Healthcare Leadership Alliance. And those organizations that I mentioned, the leaders of those organizations came together and said, we need a hub for all of the goodness that we're doing. We need a hub of leadership to come together and to talk to one another. We're all doing our things separately throughout the nation in ethics and benefits and legal, et cetera, but we need to come together, form a partnership that has in its scope and foresight these legal battles on a broader scale. And I think what that gives us is sort of this broader knowledge base, if you will, a wider net to cast with relationships and community with one another to get after this in a way that is supportive of our Catholic employer groups, our Catholic physicians, and really looking for ways to sustain Catholic healthcare in the future. That's the focus of this group.
You touched upon this a little bit earlier, and just going back to the focus of this program, where we really do zero in on the economy and finance in a particular way. We've talked with previous guests just about the out of control costs of healthcare in this country. It's such a burden on American families, especially in this environment of record high inflation and record high gas prices. Now, healthcare prices continue to skyrocket as well. It's just becoming very hard out there for everyday working families. It sounds like you believe that this new HHS mandate, when it's announced, will increase those costs even more, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I talked about, I mean, when you think about the procedures, the medications, and the cost for these types of services, and then the enforcement, right, of enforcing that this is done, right? You're going to have a wave of new procedures, right? More and more. I think I heard I think I heard that it was determined that these gender services are now considered to be standard medical practice. And I think it was Admiral Levine that said that, right? These are not considered standard medical practices by organizations that we are familiar with. This is a government leader who's saying these are standard medical practices by picking and choosing. It's like picking and choosing the news source you want to tell your story, right? At the end of the day, if this is considered to be standard medical practice and more physicians are pushing to these services, it automatically is going to increase costs. And as I talked about, the continuum of care changes, right? It's no longer a continuum of care of health and wellness. It includes this sort of package of other services that are a part of this, this new medical standard, and it's just going to amplify costs.
And those increased costs to fund these new procedures and presumably an unlimited array of procedures. Who's that paid by? I mean, ultimately, it's by the collection plate, by donors to Catholic dioceses. Am I right? I mean, that's ultimately who pays the bill, right?
Well, yes, when a health plan like a diocese archdiocesan plan is large enough to self-fund itself,
Hmm.
it is responsible for building the reserve of dollars to pay for those employees' healthcare claims, right?
Hmm.
So in that particular instance, the dollar is coming out of the pew.
Mm.
Uh, And that stewardship, that we are responsible for ensuring that we are stretching that dollar as best as possible. We all have that responsibility. Those of us in the insurance space who have these Catholic organizations as our clients, as well as them in their own organization, it's going to tax us greatly.
I guess my prayer and my hope and my optimistic outlook on this is that, those of us on all sides of this debate, and I understand that there's extremes everywhere, but just recall the founding story of our country. This country was built by people that came from oppressive parts of the world where they were not allowed to practice their faith freely and live their life according to their faith and build institutions that were based on their faith. They came here to discover that kind of liberty, not necessarily the same way of life and belief system of their neighbor or the person in their state, but they were protected ultimately by the Constitution and by the founding documents of this nation to live that way and to build institutions according to that and to associate like that. And I hope that our friends within the Catholic community and the rest of the faith-based community, even beyond that, will recognize that this stuff is just repellent to everything that our country was founded on. Am I right about that, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I guess what I would say is simplify it a little bit more with an example. We sit here today looking at this sort of gloom and doom that's coming at us from these mandates, from sort of these government officials or elites that want the country to move in a certain direction. But this past spring, my wife and I went on a trip, right? Post COVID, got to go on a trip, went on a cruise. Um, when we were on the cruise ship, the people, the American people, people from other countries melding together in a small space, um, having a great time with one another, enjoying each other's company, getting to know one another from all walks of life, every walk of life, right? In that small space. That's what America still is. You can mandate, we could probably change to socialism, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, there's good people out there. There's great people out there. And this stuff is worldly stuff. And if we think about it in that way, that's the world's going to do what the world's going to do. But at the end of the day, we have to step in and combat that. It takes brave folks to be able to do that. I think I see it as not only a challenge, but I see a much happier approach to what's going on rather than this doom and gloom all the time. And you'll see it. You'll see it when you're out and traveling, and people are just out enjoying life because they're tired of watching TV and tired of all this other stuff that's going on right now. So I think there's America out there, and at the end of the day, there's good people, and I'm hopeful for a new future.
No, amen. I mean, it's a great time to be positive and optimistic. And again, we've seen this before, and justice prevailed, and we ultimately, we're victorious, to borrow your words from earlier in the interview before. And I'm sure this will work out fine too. There is something to be said for being a happy warrior, right? For recognizing that we live in consequential times, and that there's probably a reason that we were placed in those times, and for those of us that are in that and fighting that every day, it should bring you joy. You're absolutely right, and especially the camaraderie of others, that are alongside you, within the Catholic community, beyond some of the names you mentioned earlier. You're right. It's a time to be positive, and it's also a time to cherish and relish those times with family, like the cruise that you just mentioned. Well, listen, as we start to wind down our time, Jason, just give us kind of a preview of what we should be looking for. We're recording this on May 19th. The predicted announcement from HHS has not come out yet. What's going to happen in the next weeks? What should our audience be paying attention to?
Yeah, I would say be very attentive to what's coming out of Washington. Uh, this week was listening sessions. We're anticipating that something will come. There's nothing saying that it won't within the next week. I think the next deadline to watch is June 1st, right? So something to come out by then. And pay attention, if they want to go to our website, it's www.catholicbenefitsassociation.org. We have an alerts page that pops up as soon as you get to our website, and on that page, we'll keep everybody posted.
Just curious, contrast being an account manager at Aetna and the vice president of Catholic Benefits Association.
um, Real easy, right? Account manager and relationship building and a lot of grunt work compared to getting to build some new stuff, innovative stuff for the future, and to do that all in a face of a world that's upside down right now. Couldn't be happier. Absolutely love it.
This has been such a pleasure, Jason. Thank you so much for your time today. God bless you, man. Keep up the good work. You are a happy warrior and a patriot and a good Catholic and a good man, and we're honored to call you a friend here at the Faith and Finance Forum. Folks, we've been talking to Jason Coon, Vice President of the Catholic Benefits Association here on the Faith and Finance Forum, hosted by the Catholic Finance Association, brought to you by Aquinas Wealth Advisors. God bless you all. Talk to you soon. See you next time on the Faith and Finance Forum.